Sebastian Vettel is one of the most successful drivers in Formula One history. With 4 world championships, 53 wins, and 57 pole positions, he ranks third in overall victories. But the last few years, Vettel struggled to find a seat that could give him a winning car. In 2021, Vettel made the switch from Ferrari to Aston Martin as he was deemed obsolete at the Scuderia. Lawrence Stroll, owner of Aston Martin, promised Vettel late 2019 that Aston Martin would become the new dominant Formula One team in the next few years. Substantial investments and talent recruitment was going to close the gap between Aston Martin and the top teams. Based on these promises, Vettel moved to Aston Martin. 2 years later, and Vettel finds himself at the back of the field almost every race. Where are you now, Lawrence? With speculation of Ricciardo being fired at McLaren and potentially Hamilton retiring next year, rumors spread that Vettel might make one last switch in his career. Mike Crack, team boss of Aston Martin, now said that they will do whatever they can to keep Vettel on board for next year. But does Vettel want to stay on board? We can't deny Vettel's reactions after disappointing qualifying sessions and races. So, should Vettel even want to stay at Aston Martin, or should he let the world know that he is in for one last move in his career? In this video, we will analyze the 3 options Vettel has: if he should stay at Aston Martin, move to another team, or whether it is time for Vettel to retire himself. Before we get into that, like and subscribe to the Racing Guru. Let's get it going. To fully understand Vettel's position, let's go back a few years when Lawrence Stroll made the decision to become a Formula One team owner and signed Vettel as a driver. Lawrence Stroll had high hopes that he could turn Aston Martin, previously Racing Point, into a championship-winning team. Stroll, who made his fortune with bringing Ralph Lauren to Europe, is a billionaire that has a keen eye for business opportunity. He knew that Aston Martin is a unique car brand with a legendary name, but also struggles to be financially healthy. He thought that he could make a good profit by buying a large stake in Aston Martin in 2020. Change the name of his also newly acquired Formula One team from Racing Point to Aston Martin. Hire his son and a 4-time world champion as drivers. But was this a smart move? 2 years later, and Aston Martin still makes significant losses. In retrospect, the Aston Martin car brand is operating like its Formula One counterpart does. So why did Vettel even move to Aston Martin? It became evident during the 2020 season that Charles Leclerc was the new leader of the team, whereas Vettel struggled with the horrible performing Ferrari SF1000 due to a lack of engine power. The team had to rebuild a new engine for 2020 after the 2019 engine was deemed illegal. However, Charles Leclerc managed to score points on a regular basis, whereas Vettel struggled to finish in the top 10. At the end of the season, Vettel had a point deficit of 65 points to his teammate Leclerc and ended only 13 in the standings, the lowest championship finish since his debut season in 2007. Interestingly, Racing Point, now Aston Martin, did much better, and Perez even managed to become 4th in the driver's standings after both Mercedes drivers and Verstappen. However, it wasn't Vettel's first choice to move to a new team. He felt himself a Ferrari driver foremost and was eager to renew his contract. It was Ferrari that let Vettel know that they wouldn't renew his contract and it was time to go. With not many options left, Lawrence Stroll took his chance and promised Vettel all sort of successes in the future. With a 4th place at the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, Vettel had all the reason to believe that Aston Martin was indeed on the right path to success. After Stroll told Vettel about the upcoming investments in talent recruitment and upcoming facility upgrades, Vettel was sold. Who wouldn't be after all these promises from one of the world's most successful business people? Vettel was announced as the leader of Aston Martin, and it was his job to lead the team to times of prosperity, just like Vettel did with Red Bull. However, the 2021 championship became another horrible season, where Vettel ended 12th in the Drivers' Championship, just ahead of his teammate. The team quickly assessed the lack of speed in 2021, so under Vettel and Stroll's advice, the team put their resources to the 2022 car. But why did they put their resources to the 2022 car? The Formula One would see the biggest rule change in over 40 years and would provide a good opportunity to find a way forward in the field. With hundreds of newly recruited engineers, Vettel had high hopes that he finally would get another competitive car. But did he? The answer soon became evident during preseason testing. The new Aston Martin car would both under- and oversteer in proportions that deemed impossible to predict the car's next move. The lack of stability and traction made Aston Martin one of the back teams. But there was hope. In secret, Aston Martin was working on a 2.0 version of their car, which was introduced in Barcelona. However, speculation quickly arose as the new car seemed an identical copy of Red Bull. This wasn't surprising, as Aston Martin hired two former high-ranked engineers from Red Bull. Andrew Alessi, engineer in the aero department, and Dan Fallows, ex-Red Bull aero chief officer, still had valuable information about the 2022 Red Bull car and therefore worked to develop the new Aston Martin in the same way. Was this then finally the car that would give Vettel a chance to fight for wins? The answer quickly became no, and after the disappointing race results, Red Bull dropped their claim against Aston Martin. With Azerbaijan as the highlight for Vettel by scoring a 6th place and incidental 10th and 9th finish places, it became evident that Aston Martin is still far away from developing a competitive car. So how does Vettel, a 4th-time world champion, handle these issues? Certainly he expected more when he signed for the team in 2020. Although Vettel rarely complains in the media about the lack of pace, his reactions over the team radio says enough. The last 3 races, Tim Wright, race engineer of Vettel, had to inform Vettel that he didn't make it through the first qualifying session. Vettel's reaction was annoyed, frustrated, irritated, and disappointed at the same time. Although he manages to find his way to the top 10 in a race, he clearly gets more frustrated as he sees more promises not coming through. Vettel only has a contract till the end of the year, which makes him a viable option for other teams like McLaren and potentially Mercedes. But does Vettel have a realistic chance of securing any of these seats? Toto Wolff, team boss of Mercedes, has always said that he would like to have a German driver driving for Mercedes. The last German driver in a Mercedes was Nico Rosberg in 2016. Ever since, Hamilton's success was so large that there was no reason to put 2 multi-champion drivers in a single team out of anxiety for turmoil inside the team. However, Hamilton is currently 37 years old and has always said that his big passion after Formula One involves fashion. He also recently managed that Russell would be the great leader of the team when he retires. This only fuels the rumors that Hamilton is actually thinking about retiring. Although he still has a contract till the end of 2023, many wonder whether he finds the motivation to continue if his team can't give him a winning car. If Hamilton decides to retire at the end of the year, Vettel would be high on Toto's list. Vettel is known to work well together with younger drivers, and many give him credit for his work ethic and expertise about car development. Vettel was a real candidate when it wasn't certain if Hamilton would come back after the Abu Dhabi race in 2021. A more realistic option, however, is McLaren. Daniel Ricciardo is currently under a lot of pressure to perform and finds himself in the same position Vettel was at his last season of Ferrari. Ricciardo is currently outperformed by his teammate Lando Norris and struggles to finish in point-scoring positions. Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren, already increased pressure on Daniel by stating that he needs to improve and improve fast. A candidate that is on top of his list is Vettel. Although multiple American drivers might be of interest for McLaren, it is likely that they would want to benefit from the expertise and work companionship of Vettel. It is unexpected that McLaren will sign 2 young drivers, as the team is currently struggling to find its way to the top. A third option would be to retire himself. Vettel is an open advocate for environmental issues and is often seen cleaning trash after the race. However, the F1 does give him a great platform to raise awareness, and although driving in F1 goes against his environmental beliefs, it does help him secure an audience, which is likely to shrink after he decides to retire. Much more realistic is that Vettel remains in Formula One, with McLaren being the biggest candidate to sign him on if Hamilton decides to continue next year. Although Aston Martin sees Vettel as the ideal candidate to further grow the team and help the team find its way forward, it is unlikely that Vettel, 35 years of age, wants to believe in any of these future promises. He only has a couple years left, and any option to drive in a faster car is likely to be taken.